Part 3, Episode 1, Round 6 match concluded with Tik Ka emerging victorious. He both betrayed and helped humanity equalize the score, forcing his superiors to find a While everyone was discussing, RS suddenly noticed the clown staring at him with his mouth agape. Thinking about it, it makes sense, considering he's the god of war and everyone has. But after witnessing the overwhelming power of humans, RS suddenly stopped feeling in. After an internal struggle lasting no more than 25 seconds, RS decided to volunteer to represent the god of nature, Hades, who had already claimed. The teacher failed, and everyone was surprised when the older brother, looking through the blindfold himself, revealed that he was. After equalizing, Brujnal thought to himself, now is the time to overcome the. Everything was peaceful and quiet until suddenly two women appeared, their faces pale and dry. Caught red-handed, the impostor immediately laughed, dropped his disguise, and revealed his true identity as a Then the enemy declared that their allies would win the war between the two factions, and the goalkeeper looked bewildered, completely disbelieving. The little boy laughed so hard he was practically rolling on the floor, making the girl so embarrassed she was practically fuming. That's understandable, because this fanboy is the most unpleasant man in the history of all mankind. Naturally, all three received news that Hades would come to stop them and she was furious, practically going crazy, and those two kept whispering in her ear, making her lose. Faced with this urgent situation, Bruno found the only person who could defeat the king of the underworld. Hai is also known to all of humanity as Qin Shi Huang, because he didn't know where the defensive chamber was located, so he drilled through the walls to. In the VIP room, 2 meters away, the man was surprised to learn that his older brother intended to participate in the. Luckily, Hades intervened, otherwise he would have lost his life. It turns out his younger brother was just blindly relaying the message earlier. Putting that aside, Arestin's prediction for this match is that he'll definitely score points. Hades will step in to crush humanity. No matter who the opponent was, the result was the same. While they were daydreaming, a young man confidently walked in and sat down, causing the grandfather. Who exactly is this guy, daring to sit in Hades's chair like that? Thinking that this human must have wandered in, Arestin intended to take his hand and lead him down to the auditorium, but was instead thrown to the floor. Seeing the muscular Arest being tossed around like a rag, the 2-meter-tall man seriously questioned who this man actually was. Seeing his vision obstructed, Qin Shi Huang pointed his finger and called out, "That's a." No matter where it is, once the dot is settled, that place will automatically become the dot's throne. Feeling insulted, Arest was furious and about to resort to violence when he was thrown against the wall and left. Seeing that scene, 2M never imagined that his opponent could overpower a god renowned for his strength like him. Instead of resisting, he politely accepted the man's name, offered him some fragrant honey water, and then conveniently introduced himself. Arest was about to make his skin red when suddenly the little girl opened the door and they were face to face. Through the large holes in the wall, the two sisters quickly learned that Qin Shi Huang was leisurely drinking water here. They were told not to leave the room without permission, but the emperor, out of concern for the land, would mark a path wherever he went, and that path would. Although he didn't understand what the man was saying, Arest could sense the danger emanating from him. Bruno apologized on behalf of the two gods and urged the emperor to leave, but the emperor stubbornly refused. If Tram leaves, that big, ruthless guy will be very sad. Unexpectedly, Bruno informed him that he will be. Qin Shi Huang excitedly jumped up, much to the surprise of the two gods, suddenly realizing that the battle against Hades was going to be. Qin Shi Huang didn't need to go to the entrance of the arena because wherever a dot was placed, that place would automatically be. Because Hades was involved in the upcoming match, the atmosphere became even more somber than before. The 7th round promises to be another epic battle between humans and gods. The master of ceremonies solemnly invited the gladiators to join the battle, but no one was. As soon as the drum signal sounded, everyone quickly discovered that hundreds of emperors from Chinese history were gathered at the entrance of the arena for the public debate. They all considered it an honor to be able to support the founder of China. China paved the way for great emperors, leaving people in awe, witnessing Qin Shi Huang's arrogant entry into the arena from there. The commentator was surprised but maintained his professionalism by continuing the introduction. During the most turbulent period, Qin Shi Huang swiftly suppressed and eliminated 6 kings of 6 vassal states. After ending a war that lasted 550 years, he built fortifications, opened roads, and personally unified all of Greater. For that reason, he is hailed as the first emperor who boldly stepped into the arena reserved for the gods. Instead of expecting golf and people to fight, they questioned whether the emperor could even fight, not to mention how he could fight while blindfolded. Because of that arbitrary behavior, Qin Shi Huang was captured by one of the 13 Valkyrie. He didn't bother practicing to cultivate his spiritual power, and instead made the girl wait endlessly. If the two of them are already incompatible, how can their hearts connect? Unexpectedly, Qin Shi Huang, looking pleased, called her little black stone girl. The girl immediately poured her lust into transforming into a suit of armor fit for an emperor, known as the Divine Law Kite. It fit perfectly and was very comfortable, so he liked it a lot. Knowing that the goalkeeper was worried, Bru just hoped the girl would trust in their Knowing that Hades was about to come out to meet him, Poseidon's followers were present to he knelt down and offered the beautiful trident, saying, "Take it with you," and wept, "Avenge the poor Poseidon." Hades heard this and smirked. "My little brother isn't the kind of god who needs someone else to avenge him." Nevertheless, Han accepted the request because it was his duty as an The trident, imbued with the will of Poseidon, will be used by Hades to unite them. In this way, Han obtained a divine artifact with unimaginable power that shattered his subordinates. The venerable Lord Hades will surely take revenge on those wicked humans. Despite being a gladiator representing the gods, everyone looked at Hades with fear in their eyes. Han is the one who makes terrifying monsters roar, turns the guards of hell into pets, and is the eldest of the three most powerful gods in Greece. The king of the underworld, the one who unleashes terror. This 7th round match will be the ultimate showdown between emperors. As soon as the signal to end was given, Hades unleashed a terrifying aura that sent shivers down everyone's. Driven by an intense rage for humanity, Hades unleashed a strike just like Poseidon. At first, everyone thought it would be a series of attacks, but it turned out to be just a single blow. If Qin Shi Huang hadn't been vigilant and avoided that move, he would have been instantly killed. Each thrust from Hades was equivalent to a single, with such terrifying power that a single graze would be fatal. The invisible Hades soldier leaped up and unleashed a hellish hammer blow that ripped the ground apart. Although he managed to deflect the direct blow, Qin Shi Huang was still injured because before Hades' power, there was the ability to conjure winds and turn them into weapons capable. After hearing this, the entire audience exclaimed, "What overwhelming power! Who can compete with that?" Everyone thought Qin Shi Huang would suffer defeat. Taking advantage of a moment when no one expected it, he subtly pushed the spear aside, leaving Hades. Then, wielding the spear, he deflected the full force of the attack, causing the king of the underworld to bleed. The technique that Qin Shi Huang had just used was called Thua Luk Thien Feng, heavenly. Before he even fully woke up, he arrogantly declared himself the sole king of the world. In episode 2, based on ancient records, Sivayu is described as a god of war who sows terror. Han was the inventor of 5 weapons: the crossbow, sword, halberd, spear, and armor. To become emperor of China, they needed permission from the demon Qin Sivayu. After unifying the empire, the emperor climbed Mount Tai alone to perform the Zen meditation ritual. According to records, the king of Qin went to offer sacrifices to the war god Sivayu, but things were not that simple. No one knew what happened on Mount Tai except Qin Shi Huang. That day, he went alone to meet the Qin ghost along with the ancient coffin. Upon seeing this, Sivayu immediately recognized the man as Han was extremely impressed because the king of Qin was completely different from those other cowardly emperors. Every time he met him, after laughing heartily, he ordered Qin Shi Huang to offer 10,000 lives as a sacrifice and kneel before him. Then he would allow him to become the emperor of China. Upon hearing this, the king of Qin gifted it a clay statue, which appeased. He picked up a handful of earth and said, "The soil of Qin is very good, man of Andy." Sivayu heard this, tried a piece of soil. Han advised the king of Qin to obediently offer gifts if he wanted to become the emperor of China, otherwise, without the permission of a deity like himself, he would not be able. Upon hearing this, the king of Qin flatly refused, saying, "I would rather die than ever kneel before a man." In his eyes, it was nothing more than a man-eating monster that proclaimed itself a god. "Today, I will exterminate this person." Following that arrogant declaration of war, the two sides engaged in a fierce battle that lasted 6 days and nights. The moment Xi Jinping fell, the history of all of China was handed over to humanity, and the title of Qin Shi Huang was born from that moment. Returning to the golf match, Brunel stated that the move just now was the ultimate technique that the king of Qin had mastered. It was a supreme martial art comprising 5 different techniques, and to this day, Ari still doesn't know which technique the king of Qin used that caused Lord Hades to collapse. During the month of the 2-meter celebration, it was discovered that Qin Shi Huang had used some technique. Then, it pushes back, causing Lord Hades to focus all the damage. Generally speaking, it's an extremely rare set of techniques that not. After directing all his attacks, Hades stood up and asked, "What do you think king means?" For Qin Shi Huang, being unwavering, unyielding, unsubmissive, and always standing at the forefront to protect his own 3 fundamental interests. After hearing this, Hades burst into laughter, causing the entire audience to become restless. Seeing this, the king, then, wondering why he was laughing so hard, from his manner of speaking to his demeanor, Qin Shi Huang reminded Hades of his younger brother. Poseidon was a god more noble than all the other gods. He was not scheming or manipulative, and was extremely straightforward. It could be said that he is more deserving of the title of king than anyone else, given his position as the brother of Poseidon, the king of the sea. "We will never accept bowing down to a mediocre king like you." Seeing Lord Hades now holding his spear in a strange posture that outsiders dare to disrespect. In an instant, Han rushed forward to attack with a crushing blow. Powerful, but the problem was that the Qin king's martial arts had the ability to. That means Hades will take all the damage and then suddenly lose like before. Everyone thought Hades would suffer defeat except for 2M. As soon as the opponent blocked the attack. In episode 6, the sorcerer Bruno mentioned was actually a mad scientist of the century named Tesla. All the examples of science and technology that are still in use today were created by him. His research was almost like magic, and Tesla immediately denied it was magic. Here, we call it science. Have you ever heard the wind? He had completed his research long ago, but lacked the materials to turn his theoretical. Coincidentally, the ninth Valkyrie was able to fulfill that requirement of his. When Bruno called him over to introduce Tesla, he went over and stared into. After staring at her for a while, he suddenly asked if she would offer her body. The woman, Valkyrie, happily took my hand and replied, "I am willing to give everything to you." With just a few brief sentences, the couple qualified to receive the divine energy. Possessing the power of female magic, Valkyrie transformed into a super cool mechanical suit of armor. What people considered divine was, to Tesla, merely the laws of physics. It's time to prove to everyone that our science surpasses the gods. From ancient times, Beelzebub was known to people for his severe intestinal injuries. Whether he's the lord of flies or the embodiment of the sin of intrusion, that is why he became the loneliest god in the heavens. Everyone avoided Beelzebub because of the bad luck he had brought upon them. To be even worse, to be captured by a demon and have one's life taken by him. Many even warned against making eye contact with him, saying that if you didn't want to bring trouble upon yourself. In his loneliest moment, 3 angels came to see what Beelzebub looked like. Lucifer has excellent intuition, so he could tell at a glance that the other guy was very. All 3 greeted him warmly, even though the young man had sneaked into the forbidden garden to eat. The teacher's method of using a goat's testicles wasn't effective, so he resorted to his. I heard that guy say the hollow part of a fallen object can grind things up, and when my 2 friends used, I thought this would attract attention, but instead, Beelzebub was indifferent and depressed. Knowing that his opponent was ostracized by the entire heavenly realm, Lucifer descended to advise him. Isn't the devil just an ancient monster or a superstition? Just ignore what those idiots say and you'll be fine. Indeed, if they were to meet Shaw Monk, all 3 would want to know what kind. Despite being coldly rejected and chased away by Beelzebub, the comedic trio remained determined to be. We'll definitely get along very well, because Lucifer possesses the highest level of intuition in the celestial realm. If you still don't believe it, why don't you check it for yourself? All 3 tried every trick in the book, including beating him up, which made Beelzebub burst out laughing. Seeing this, Lucifer playfully teased and ruffled the sticky wrapper that had fallen over, making the young. After being bid farewell and welcomed by him, Beelzebub hesitantly agreed to go with them, completely unaware of what was in the forbidden garden, for young men were secretly stealing apples when they were discovered by the guards. Seeing this, Lucifer quickly pulled Beelzebub. By the way, this potato is our new accomplice, he said, looking like a persistent drizzle that soaks the ground. Beelzebub gradually opened up and he even started laughing and became the banter of the comedic trio, wishing they could all be together forever. That night, Beelzebub shed tears of joy knowing he was no longer alone. The next morning when he woke up, he was astonished to find himself covered in someone else's blood. He frantically woke all 3 of them up, only to be horrified to discover they had been brutally murdered. Beelzebub was utterly astonished by what he had just witnessed. Recalling the rumors that people had attributed to him, Beelzebub was terrified to believe that the devil actually existed. Filled with resentment, he bit his lip and vowed to himself, "I will avenge my friends." Then he shouted loudly, "I will definitely track down and find that evil monk." Following that incident, Beelzebub dedicated himself entirely to researching the true identity of. He trudged along alone, frightening passers-by with his lifeless face. Because he was the only survivor, people thought Beelzebub had been possessed by a demon and killed the 3 angels. When the goddess Lilith learned that he was investigating the identity of the chariot driver, she volunteered to help, but he turned her away. Like him, she also wanted revenge because the devil had killed Lucifer, her childhood friend. Lilith tracked down the clues to this town to uncover the true story behind Beelzebub and the curse of Acqui. If you are attacked by a bandit, we will be by your side, watching over you. I will stay by your side, even if it means going down to the depths of hell. The way this woman likes to impose her will on others reminds Beelzebub of Lucifer. After that meeting, the 2 embarked on a quest to uncover Acqui's identity. From what they found, the monk was someone everyone feared. A person everyone has heard of but never seen. Throughout their journey together, Beelzebub gradually developed feelings for Lilith. However, the search for the whereabouts of the tank was not without its difficulty. Despite having traveled to the very edge of heaven and down to the deepest depths of hell, Beelzebub remained. Where on earth is that guy Acqui anyway? That night, Beelzebub dreamed that his friends were in the hands of a tank. By his power, Acqui bound him, forcing him to stand and watch as the 3 angels were brutally tortured. The monk, while torturing the victim, revealed that love would turn into hatred, and all those whom he loved would perish. Hearing the sound of gasping breaths, Lilith went inside to comfort the injured Beelzebub. Sometimes he wondered why Lucifer would befriend someone like him. Why would a good man like him seek out someone like me? Lilith calmly explained that it was because he couldn't abandon the other gods. Even Lucifer himself felt lonely, so he couldn't ignore other lonely people. He simply didn't want to leave him alone, that's all. After hearing that, Beelzebub felt embarrassed and thought Lucifer was true. The man clung tightly to Lilith, vowing to avenge everyone. From now on, no matter what happens, I will protect her. In the midst of their happiness, Beelzebub suddenly dozed off and was awakened by Lilith's voice. And then, in horror, he realized he had done something he would never forget for the rest. At the moment love reaches its peak, Beelzebub will unconsciously destroy those he cherishes. After his friend pierced a hole in Lucifer's body, he realized that this was his instinct to destroy life. The name of the parasitic plant that Beelzebub was looking for. To get the answer, he had to pay a price that was too high, one he himself did not want. Indeed, I always bring misfortune to those around me. Before she passed away, Lilith wanted Beelzebub to understand that they had been very happy together. I believe even Lucifer couldn't lead you, Lilith finally said, placing her hand on his cheek and confessing how heartbreakingly much she. I forgive you for everything, please continue living for all of us. She managed to give her final command to Beelzebub before closing her eyes and passing away. No matter how much he cried and pleaded, his lover Lilith could not come back. The girl, in despair, lost her will to live and constantly yearned for. Beelzebub wanted to suffer as much as possible to pay for the substances he had used. Episode 7. After the renovation of the arena was completed, the god of the old tree decided to avenge that humiliation by sending Beelzebub into battle. A god descended from the depths of hell, a bringer of despair to arrogant humanity. When his demeanor became so gloomy that the fanboy exclaimed, "That's really terrifying." When sent into battle, people doubted whether Beelzebub would devour humans or gods. From gods to mortals, everyone trembles with fear at the mention of him. Or he is also remembered by the name of the one who was cast down by Satan. Despite being sent to fight, the godlike Link strangely showed contempt for Beelzebub. Many were not surprised to hear this, because he was indeed such a god. At the exit of the human world, he was suddenly bewildered to see no one around. He was flying low to investigate when suddenly there were bursts of electricity being sold everywhere. Despite the danger, Mr. Shin diligently completed the presentation professionally, and Tesla is known as the brainchild of ingenuity. A genius who transcends human limitations creates a new kind of magic called science. The man who turned illusions into reality brought humanity closer to the gods. Carrying the ultimate Zab power within him, Tesla, with arrogant pride, flew straight onto the arena, entering the fateful 8th match with countless unanswered questions. Tesla confidently approached without any defenses, leaving the god gaping in astonishment. After observing him from all, since the Lord of the Species is not like what we imagine, this battle promises to be very interesting to study. After hearing this, Beelzebub felt it was a shame the match wasn't as exciting as it would end simply with bodies being torn apart. Tesla didn't accept his point of view. Because that destructive ideology is the height of stupidity. It's just as bad as rejecting creativity. With a strong will and a willingness to look towards the future, coupled with the noble and beautiful footprints of intellect, humanity will continue to create, and that's something even gods like you can't stop, and unfortunately, Beelzebub doesn't seem to care about any of that. "Hurry up, we have to go home, nobody has time to listen," he said, keeping his word and unexpectedly launching an attack that shattered a nearby pillar. The fact that he could deliver blows without moving was something created by magic, Tesla immediately dismissed as science. Scientists explain that every result has a cause. He split the ground and made the tree of the shovel using a very simple law of physics. 2 is also known simply as oscillation. Seeing that Ares was clueless and didn't know what that concept was, 2M held up. He can create sound wave vibrations with his screams to destroy objects. Going even further could cause earthquakes that would shake the entire world. Beelzebub is so skilled that he can transform oscillating objects into a sharp blade capable of cutting. His super oscillations sound simple, but their versatility is extremely high. Even with a 2-meter system, it's almost impossible to counteract it. Even his strong body would crumble into pieces the moment it touched it. The fact that Beelzebub is so enraged proves that Ares' influence is affecting him. Sometimes Adamus felt sorry for that lonely guy who only had our brother to rely on. With just one explanation, the Teslas quickly understood the problem. Luckily I had the armor, otherwise I would have become half of Gojo. Then, in many ways, that scientist could win because that suit of armor was imagined to be the most magnificent suit in human. Furthermore, it is further embodied by the female Valkyrie, who possesses magic. The supersuit Tesla is wearing is both a divine artifact and a masterpiece of scientific achievement. After taunting his opponent, he swiftly launched a counterattack. Then he unleashed a series of punches with incredible destructive power, forcing Bill Zbuff to dodge. The life energy of a Valkyrie has been converted into ultra-high voltage within the super battle suit. That's how Tesla can unleash and launch a plasma pulse punch. To be honest, the scientists found the name Tesla gave to the projector really tacky. In terms of strength, it must be acknowledged that it's top-notch. Upon hearing this, everyone was excited to learn that such a powerful punch could crush even a god. Tesla, on the other hand, was a little disappointed because if it didn't fight them, it would just be busy toasting smoke. Regaining his confidence, he continued his attack, determined to prove to everyone that science could reach the gods. After all that effort, finally there was a savior who made all the gods stand up. That punch was powerful, but it was nothing compared to Bill Zbuff's hellish defense. More accurately, it's an oscillating wall. Seeing his opponent desperately unleashing the angelic toss to attack, Tesla remained unfazed and defiantly retaliated with a double electric shock punch. While the two sides were evenly matched, Bill Zbuff's scalp temperature suddenly spiked, catching the scientist off guard. Ultimately, choosing the path of the giant oscillating wall caused the entire assembly to collapse, and seeing his opponent already out of breath, as expected, he's just as useless as everyone else. Bill Zbuff is an otherworldly god with two faces. Sometimes he is a demon bringing destruction to the earth, but at other times he is the guardian of fertility. Because of this, he was both feared and worshipped in the temple. Run Yu explained that the staff he held was a divine artifact that amplified his power. When held in the left hand, it transforms into a layer of white leaves that block all attacks, while when held in the right hand, it becomes a sword capable of destroying even. In short, Bill Zbuff's abilities have different characteristics depending on which hand he uses. By adjusting in this way, he can maximize his strength in both offense and defense. Combined with the divine power that amplifies the fluctuations, he becomes. It could be said that he is a god who wields both the spear and the ultimate white leaf. Back in the arena, Tesla was full of praise for the demon lord's all-around offensive and defensive technique. Seeing him calmly analyzing the situation right in the middle of the match, the other scientists felt embarrassed for him, and some even jokingly. Bill Zbuff flatly refused because he intended to end the fight right now. It seemed that no one could break me into pieces, so Tesla responded with a page of cryptic words that left his opponent bewildered. Ultimately, what did the person mean? Tesla looked up at the sky with a satisfied expression and replied, recognizing that the time was right. The scientist solemnly introduced the evolution and true value of humanity. Having said that, he created a prison for the gods to appease the deity Lin Hongming. An electric cage looked so ghostly that the golfer thought he had fallen into a spaceship. Tesla ant eggs were floating in the area, and the scientists erupted in overwhelming joy. Tesla's science is so incredibly brilliant that, once inside this prison, Bill Zbuff would no longer be a god. From now on, the spotlight belongs to Tesla. The naive children, watching their uncle fly around, excitedly call it magic. Upon hearing this, the scientists immediately denied it and clarified that after Tesla passed away, many of his unpublished research papers were seized by unknown parties. Among the highly sophisticated weapons he invented was one called the anti-gravity system. Due to the limitations of technology at that time, manufacturing it was impossible. However, it has now become a reality. Bruno explained that the supersuit was created using Valkyrie as the material. The particles are dispersed along with the electric current they emit, and when these particles fill the area, the anti-gravity system will be active. After explaining, my sister confessed that she only knew the old ways of how it worked. Only the one and only sorcerer in human history understood wind. Seeing Bill Zbuff already showing interest, Tesla hoped he wouldn't get too excited because there were still many beautiful places in this prison. After the introduction, he proceeded to attack with even more powerful armor and medical skills than before. Following that devastating attack, Tesla successfully injured Bill. Episode 8. Witnessing that scene, RS couldn't help but wonder how the human could move so fast. 2M denies that the speed doesn't actually change much when running. We constantly kick the ground to propel ourselves forward. It usually takes a certain amount of time to reach top speed, but Tesla was different because he had an anti-gravity suit. It was thanks to that technology that he could reach maximum speed with just the first push. In general, the anti-gravity device allows Tesla to move at incredible speeds. As he finished explaining, he suddenly stood right next to me, causing Bill Zbuff to chase. He raised his staff to block the blow, but Tesla dodged behind him, then made a sharp turn, almost getting his mouth smashed in. Luckily, he managed to quickly raise his shield, otherwise he would have been defeated. The reason he was still injured was because the defensive technique. Lowe commented that if Bill Zbuff continues to play like this, he's likely to lose. We refuse to stand idly by and let Tesla do whatever it wants. Bill Zbuff suddenly switched hands to attack, catching the scientist by. Since he didn't expect his opponent to counterattack at times like this, seeing his opponent lose his balance, Bill Zbuff immediately executed the angelic strike to. In response, Tesla smiled and stepped back slightly, leaving the entire audience stunned. He nonchalantly launched the attack in that bizarre posture. Then, spinning around, he retaliated with a sudden electrical shock. Affected by the attack, Bill Zbuff learned to heal and was unable to maintain his defensive shield. Seeing his opponent struggling and unable to defend himself, Tesla felt, "Indeed, no one could have predicted my extraordinary move," he said. The scientists were speechless. Were there no other names they could come up with? Even the most discerning person has to admit that the ability to move is truly. While I'm still inside this cage, Tesla can move freely at breakneck speed. After getting bored with the garden, he deliberately missed the shot to trick. Since he was holding a staff in his hand, he certainly couldn't block Tesla's swinging arm. The poets and artists rejoiced, thinking the battle was over, only to find that the demon lord, although Adamus disliked the gloomy man's personality, he had to admit that his fighting prowess was incredibly formidable. Theoretically, the match was decided, but something just didn't feel right. Bill Zbuff did manage to block the punch, but that doesn't mean Tesla was outmaneuvered. For him, science will always progress and will never stop. Then he activated his armor to show the gods the wisdom of humankind. In just a brief moment, Tesla moved behind Bill Zbuff and launched a surprise attack, giving him no time to react. 9 months after the extravagant scientist passed away, Tesla's final research was used to conduct a top-secret experiment. The destroyer is equipped with a high-powered Tesla core on its bow. The man ran high voltage through the ship's hull hoping to make it invisible to Jada. However, when the work was underway, an extremely strong magnetic field then he simply vanished from Jada right before the eyes of the entire crew. Over 300 kilometers away, a giant ship suddenly appeared offshore, terrifying the fishermen. According to those who witnessed it firsthand and have recounted it many times, the invisibility experiment on Jada was. I saw with my own eyes that the ship moved instantaneously. Although the experiment was successful, the inside of the displaced ship turned in. In total, 13 people died or went missing, and the only 6 survivors went in. Following that incident, a high-ranking Navy commander decided to bury the research permanently. That seemingly failed experiment was actually exactly what Tesla had. He successfully moved behind Bill Zbuff, punched through his defenses, and sent him flying ashore. The entire audience immediately exclaimed, "Is this even science?" Even the gladiators were astonished by his incredible speed. The old man insisted the scientist hadn't moved at all and had certainly vanished. Even 2 meters away, I'm at a loss as to how to explain this to RSU. What everyone is admiring is called Tesla's movement, and it's making people cringe. However, surprisingly, Bill Zbuff discovered 3 limitations from the technique. First, it needs time to clean up before it can be activated, because if it could be reactivated again, he would have hired it from the previous phase. Secondly, Tesla's range of movement is also limited by its apparent ability to provide a smooth, intermittent drive. The scientist successfully lured him to a location where he could teleport. After hearing this for a long time, I had to admit that Tesla is indeed a cunning. Eventually, the number of times he could activate it was limited, although he was caught red-handed and one side of the device was dead. But Tesla still applauded its competitor's insightful assessment. Then, they explained in detail to Bill Zbuff how it worked. First of all, teleportation can only be performed inside the prison cell. If you fly outside, you're definitely dead. At the point of transition to Tesla, he had to increase the concentration of superparticles, understanding Nona as the places where he will attract and gather the particles. When attacking, he will disperse the high-density particles into. After identifying the point of departure, Tesla will synchronize the superparticles using this device to carry. The synchronization process takes over 60 seconds, and the device will also be damaged after being moved. According to my estimation, I can only use it 2 more times. If the scientist used it more than that, Ms. Van Carey would surely be shattered. Tesla said that if one's soul is bound, it will vanish, which made Golf extremely worried for the person who was just fighting out there. Bill Zbuff thought this guy was confident enough to reveal the information to his opponent, but that wasn't the truth. In science, concealing information is detrimental, which is why Tesla did not hesitate to share his newly acquired knowledge with all of humanity. Hearing this, Bill Zbuff smiled, eager to fight this man again, despite the injuries he was sustaining being far more severe than they appeared. This pain reminded Bill Zbuff of the kiss that broke into the palace and caused utter chaos. With his battered body, he begged to fight the king of the underworld in a duel. Through rumors, Hades learned the name of the demon lord who had been causing chaos in the underworld. "How many monsters did you defeat to get here? And you want to challenge me in this pathetic state?" Bill Zbuff wasn't afraid at all because he came here looking for something. "If you already know, then..." In response to that wish, Hades readily accepted the demon lord's challenge. After a few basic exchanges, Bill Zbuff was completely crushed by the great king. And then he even beat me so badly that I was slammed against the wall, but I was still. Despite his defeat, Bill Zbuff shed tears of satisfaction, knowing he was about to be executed. The reason he crawled here seeking Hades' help was because he was unable to. He desperately offered himself up in place of the monsters, but they couldn't do it either. It was all because of the curse Lilith had. She wants me to live on, but I can't bear the ever-increasing suffering. Please, day after day, help me to answer the curse she left for me. Hades didn't know what had happened between the two of them, but he understood Lilith's feelings perfectly. We can confirm that it was not a curse but a prayer. That girl wanted him to continue living, yet he didn't know how to live before he passed away. Indeed, as Hades said, Lilith left this mark because she wanted him to live for everyone. In short, Hades wants the demon lord to think carefully and then return here. If they still want the quality at that point, we will fulfill their request. After hearing this, Beelzebub burst into tears, wanting everyone to tell him what he should do. After days of reflection, he returned to the palace and still wanted to log out, but the power bestowed upon him by someone like the king of the underworld. Beelzebub cried, yearning to be buried in the most pathetic way possible before he died, vowing to live in profound suffering. That would be my atonement to them. Hades burst out laughing upon hearing this, surprised that the demon lord was so troublesome. To fulfill that wish, he bestowed upon Beelzebub the magical staff. There's something that people won't easily get rid of. From now until then, I'll be the one witnessing their prolonged suffering. Hades readily extended a helping hand because he wanted Beelzebub to be grateful, so that if he ever got into trouble or something happened to him later, it is precisely because of his annoying personality that Beelzebub is suffering so much on Hades' day that I've become an even more troublesome person. After the sudden death of the king of the underworld, Beelzebub was extremely distraught and wanted to slaughter all of humanity. Episode 9. The attack that Beelzebub is about to unleash is a technique forbidden in the underworld. Tesla, unaware of the danger, kept charging forward, eager to see what his opponent would do, combining and intensifying his offensive and defense. Suddenly, an eerie, spine-chilling aura emanated from around Beelzebub. Seeing this, he hastily tried to intervene, but it was too late, for once a false god is born, everything will be wiped out immediately. In front of the entire audience, a giant black sphere enveloped the arena and then caused a catastrophic explosion. Anyone sitting still will be instantly swept away by the aftershocks. The void god is truly a terrifying technique that astonished. In just a few short seconds of sitting there, it had punched a huge hole in the arena. However, surprisingly, Tesla somehow survived the recent blow. However, he and Van Carey have suffered considerable harm and are on the verge of losing their identities. Is humanity's hope about to be crushed and extinguished by the darkness of the underworld? I've only ever heard stories about this technique, never actually seen it. By using both hands, offensive and defensive movements will be closely integrated. The vibrations are compressed and released in a massive explosion. Because of its devastating power, it has been banned in the underworld. The key point is that the user's body will also be affected and damaged. To maintain its position in the market, Tesla had to sacrifice another core component. More accurately, he had no other choice but to do it that way. Before performing the experiment, the scientist delivered a pulsed electrical punch with an instantaneous energy level. Despite all that, he managed to neutralize the demonic attack, but only partially. Seeing Beelzebub about to put an end to this contest, Tesla once again smiled, denying that humanity has no such thing as an end. As a child, he was a curious boy who often sneaked to the secret base. Each time this happened, the mother would complain that her child was so useless and didn't. Today Tesla went to his brother's science lab to see the final photos of the improved wind-powered carburetor. In theory, it should work, but my brother is complaining that he doesn't know if it will actually run. Tesla reassured everyone that everything he did was always successful. If he wasn't confident, why would he take on? I accept this kind of love because it will make everyone happy, but unfortunately, I lack confidence in this aspect of. If it fails, everyone will be very disappointed, but Tesla's brother and I think it's necessary. It is these failures that will lead us to new discoveries, just like the salty stew that she learned to make from her mother. Initially, it tasted terrible because she kept messing it up, but after learning from her experience and trying it repeatedly, it became a dish our family loves. In short, failure is what has driven human progress. After hearing this, the older brother had to shake his head in admiration. Perhaps you will become an extraordinary person someday, and then I will make you a special researcher in the cage for the gods. Tesla objected, saying, let's change the name to God's Superhouse. Everything else about him is so cool and insightful. The two brothers' happy and peaceful lives continued like that, but then the storm came on a rainy day. At that time, his brother had gone to check on the windmill but hadn't returned yet, so Tesla, worried, rushed outside despite the extremely bad. When he arrived, he found that the windmill had been destroyed by lightning, and his beloved older brother had also become an unwilling victim of it. After that loss, Tesla, though deeply saddened, did not blame Mr. Back, who had asked his brother to get drunk and was not at fault at all. Moreover, my brother is still alive, and I know he will continue to live inside me after my brother has passed away. Tesla completed the windmill based on his design, but unfortunately, it didn't move as everyone expected. The child prodigy faded from the villagers' memories after 6 years of confining himself to the laboratory his older brother had left behind. Tesla's improved windmill, which brought it back to life, amazed the whole village, earning him much praise. The humble young man explained that it wasn't a new design, in just improvements based on the original design. Tesla spent 6 years researching and proudly completing the windmill. He proved to everyone that his brother was still alive inside him. Tesla, with tears in his eyes, believed that as long as we continued to advance science, he would. From then on, he dedicated his entire life to science. Even after being called to heaven, Tesla continued his research. His selfless dedication touched the hearts of humanity, bringing people to tears. Even the deceased older brother was deeply troubled to see his younger brother in such a terrible. Despite being at a disadvantage, Tesla did not give up. As long as we continue to build upon our heritage and advance science, humanity will never perish. With the unwavering support and encouragement of Lady Van Carey, Tesla confidently erected the prison of the gods to confront the demon lord once again. The Prime Minister launched attacks from all sides, forcing Beelzebub to strain himself. His counterattacks were also difficult to hit their target because Tesla's movement was so fast and agile. Seeing this, Adamus was annoyed that he didn't just use his god-slaying technique to end the match. I thought that was completely impossible because Beelzebub no longer had the strength to withstand the aftereffects of that attack. After observing from a distance of 2 meters, I realized that the instantaneous teleportation technique. Beelzebub naturally possessed exceptional fighting instincts. He could figure out an opponent just by seeing. Arrest thought the victory had shifted to the demon lord, but 2 meters completely negated that. The truth is, Beelzebub is enduring the pain after taking a devastating blow, while his opponent still has his armor to make things difficult for him. After a fierce battle, Tesla, out of fear, allowed Beelzebub to brush past him, resulting. As they retreated to maintain distance, they accidentally knocked over several rocks scattered across the battle. Because its maneuverability was reduced by half, Tesla was forced to turn off its anti-gravity. On the other side, Beelzebub wasn't doing much better either, as the fluctuating attacks were putting tremendous pressure on his body. Suddenly, danger arose, and the demon lord lunged forward, unleashing a barrage of attack. He was attacking while simultaneously pleading with Lilith, "Please don't interfere with me. I'm fighting for my life." Thanks to Lilith's mark, all the pain Beelzebub was suffering vanished in an instant. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he unleashed a barrage of insults, forcing Tesla to raise both. With just one blow and touch, the birdcage was instantly blown away. Beelzebub used his own body to carry out the brutal attack. It not only injured Tesla but also completely devastated humanity. Just when we thought the match was over, Tesla suddenly yelled, a truly extraordinary move. Seeing him so excited, both those who criticize people and those who criticize Tesla's eyes at that moment seemed to be focused solely on the future. Because he's Tesla, he won't give up no matter the circumstances. Even if the dance hall explodes, he won't give up. Tesla was the human being with the lowest likelihood of using the word give up in human history. Therefore, no matter how broken or battered he becomes, he will remain steadfast until the very end. His courageous spirit moved the entire audience to tears. Once again, Tesla's device has ignited a glimmer of hope for humanity. Along with him, everyone else simultaneously stood up and cheered enthusiastically. Despite the positive message, the feeling wasn't very important, because if we rely solely on spirit and machinery, how can we penetrate that shield? With his last remaining strength, Tesla proactively charged forward to engage in close-quarters combat. The strategy he used to counter the shield was to keep punching until it shattered. Episode 10. Tesla's electric punches were delivered with absolutely no gaps, leaving all viewers breathless. Whether the demon lord could retaliate from that position, scientists quickly realized Tesla was also going all in on a big gamble. Is he planning to keep punching until Beelzebub's shield is completely shattered? Adamus believed the demon lord would win because the human's strength had reached its limit. Han keeps focusing on the easy money and forgets that Beelzebub is also struggling. From what I've observed, he's also running around frantically and can't defend himself. After hearing this, Adamus shouted a warning, anyone who dares to testify against. The ant eggs, like 2 fighting ants, showcased their endurance, and the entire audience. Seeing this, the god of comedy also turned around and cheered for Beelzebub. If that person runs out of breath, then the winner is certain. It could be said that this is a contest where everyone deserves to win. Beelzebub's shield or Tesla's spear, who will ultimately hold the upper hand? Each punch Tesla threw seemed to tell all of humanity that science was fighting on equal footing with a god. The egg proves to everyone that science and human ingenuity can reach the level of the divine. Despite fighting fiercely, Tesla was the first to fall short. There are many reasons why he was injured, but the most significant is the aftereffects of the very moment he touched that spherical vibration, he may have suffered internal damage. Even knowing that, Tesla still found this battle incredibly fascinating. The tenacious scientist continued to throw punches, but they were deflected by Beelzebub's shield. Taking advantage of the moment his opponent lost his balance, he immediately rushed forward. Unfortunately, that's exactly what Tesla was hoping for. He smiled and flipped back to unleash an electric shock punch, just as the demon lord erected a defensive shield. Tesla sent a thank you message and then activated its teleportation ability, but then his arm suddenly disappeared in midair, leaving everyone gaping in astonishment. What was he ultimately hoping to achieve by taking such a risk? Unexpectedly, the scientist's arm suddenly moved behind his back. It turned out he had decided to sacrifice his right arm to perform an unimaginable attack. Not stopping there, Tesla continued to deliver another blow from his left hand to create a pincer-like position. Cornered, Beelzebub accepts defeat by letting go of his staff to redirect the attack. Next, Lexer, while trying to drain the contents from the stalemate, finally finished off the brilliant scientist with a stab that, the only and final piece of equipment also shattered, much to the audience's disappointment. Faced with that failure, Tesla held his head and smiled, as if he had taken a second step ahead of me. I thought it was a good idea, but I guess I was too naive. Beelzebub was able to foresee this because he believed that an intelligent man like Tesla would never resort to such a strategy using sheer brute force. Feeling honored to be respected by a god like him, the demon lord withdrew his hand, allowing Tesla to say a few words to his brother and all of humanity. Everyone expected him to either deny the accusation or express regret, but no, Tesla continued his defiant speech, urging all of humanity to hold. In this battle, we have evolved one step further. As long as we never give up, science and humanity will never come to an end. Before Tesla could fall, the Valkyrie woman reached out and helped him regain his balance. In short, Tesla wanted all of humanity to look ahead, keep striving, and never give up. After saying their final goodbyes, they both passed away peacefully, leaving behind unspeakable. But the will and hope that Tesla left for humanity will never fade away. After that victory, Beelzebub leveled the score for the prodigy. After witnessing that battle, the gods had to acknowledge that Tesla truly deserved the title of the sorcerer of mankind, and of course, they didn't forget to shower the demon lord. Stepping inside, Beelzebub chuckled softly, realizing that gods and humans weren't. What do you think of this match? Hades said from the VIP room. Arrest breathed a sigh of relief after. Even after reflecting on it, the god still couldn't understand how the alternating electric shock punch, even 2 meters, couldn't have anticipated Tesla's attack before it hit Beelzebub's shield. The scientist shifted the fist behind his back to create an unavoidable pincer-like grip. To execute that move, Tesla unleashed a series of reckless punches, the goal being to tell the time and pinpoint the location of the instantaneous. In general, it was truly an attack beyond the wildest imagination of the onlookers. Even the most seasoned veterans were completely shocked. If it weren't for Bill Zuckerberg, we wouldn't have had a chance to win. In the audience, the scientists spent the remaining time explaining Tesla's technique to everyone. After that, they were also extremely grateful for his genius. In the midst of the escalating battle, Tesla devised and perfected that tactic. He continued to pursue progress until the very end of his life, even as his spirit continued to ignite a flame in the hearts of humanity. Instead of sitting there mourning, the scientists pulled themselves together and continued their research. We will follow in his footsteps and preserve the legacy of the greatest scientist in human history. Meanwhile, Golf was constantly feeling sorry for the ant-eggs of Sister Valkyrie Jadi, and even though I know she's accepted her fate, just thinking about it still breaks my heart. After the judges ruled to equalize the 4 points, the arena will temporarily cease operations for repair. During a break, Bruno quietly went to the experiment room alone. This is a place to commemorate the Oai Hung fighters who fell in this battle. For Bruno, they were truly great warriors. While she was shedding tears, the voice of the Buddha suddenly rang out, startling her. Every time the Buddha saw his child crying, seeing someone so entangled in worldly desires like her being so tearful, Bruno wanted to turn and criticize her, but he was nowhere to be seen. The invisible Buddhist soldier, holding the female protagonist's hand from behind, smiled and asked about her ex-boyfriend. Is he being held captive? Bruno was visibly annoyed at being asked questions he didn't want to hear. The guy you're referring to isn't my ex-boyfriend. After correcting the mistake, she immediately left the room to prepare for the next. The Buddha, however, was deeply moved by what he had just heard. Although somewhat confused, he knew that the other man was still very much attached. Deep underground, in the underworld, there is a thatched hut reserved for extremely dangerous. These creatures could unleash a terrifying amount of floating garbage on the world if they. I accidentally overheard a conversation between 2 guards. Siegfried was surprised to learn that the score between the 2 sides was 4-4. The 2 soldiers, hearing this, were curious to know which side a half-human, half-god like him would support in this. In response, Siegfried's words piqued the guards' curiosity. Luckily, a colleague pulled them apart, otherwise the grandfather and grandson would have. The person locked inside is extremely dangerous, you must not speak to him. Since there was no one to talk to, Sigfrid often chatted by himself. At times like these, he always wondered if it was okay to brew so much. She always pushes herself too hard, making me anxious. I hope she doesn't push herself too far. In episode 11, the god of death finally tied the score at 4-4, but Ares felt discouraged because he had to go meet that Narcissus. Even the most discerning person must admit that the name is indeed strange and enigmatic, yet its absolute power cannot be underestimated. Upon arriving, the three gods were confronted with the sight of Apollo bathing with his harem. Seeing an acquaintance come looking for him, he immediately went out to greet him, completely naked, which frightened Ares. Whoever wants to see the goods of the first person to come here, they'll be warmly welcomed by Apollo, who even sheds tears. We are not related in any way. This guy is so persistent. Ares got annoyed and waved her hand to tell him to get out of. Seeing this, Apollo moved aside, causing the god to lose his balance and slip, falling into the After laughing heartily, he wondered what everyone wanted from him, and revealed that he would be the fighter representing the god of fire in the next match. The score is currently 4-4, and all three defeats were to Greece. After hearing this, Apollo felt angry because he hadn't witnessed their admirable qualities, which made Ares. The group didn't seem sad at all afterward, and Apollo wondered why they should be sad about it. Not all of them fought using soul-enhancing fruit pills. Even knowing that, the guy kept getting up and waving his arms at the slightest provocation, leaving Ares. After refuting the accusation, Apollo turned to the harem and asked if they wanted to see him fight beautifully and shine like the best fighter. The girls, hearing this, enthusiastically agreed, just as he wished. As the sun god, Apollo agreed to join the battle in response to their. Ares, meanwhile, felt dizzy and disoriented because the man's gleaming middle leg was shining. After that incident, Bruno became more irritable than ever. For her, flowery words meant nothing because if we didn't win, we would lose everything. Putting that aside, she simply led the golfer to the next warrior's room. This time, the target was the greatest rebel in human history, which made the little girl. Inside the gladiator's room, there were many portraits carved on the walls. From ancient times, tens of thousands of black people, a civilized race. However, among them is one civilization that is the most glorious and awe-inspiring. Even though they were wiped out, the Spartan warriors here did not neglect their training. After the introductions, Bruno went to call King Leonidas, who was smoking poison. He represents humanity in that ninth match. Upon hearing this, Leonidas immediately refused, making the goalkeeper so This old man only wants to fight the opening or final battle. If you can't arrange it, then this deal is cancelled. Bruno, hearing this, feigned regret while holding a picture of the god Apollo Quoco in his hand. In the 7 million years of human history, only he has the ability to defeat the god who is about. Despite all attempts to persuade him, he remained stubborn and refused to listen. Suddenly, Leonidas changed his mind and called back, asking if she meant that sun god. Bruno was just waiting for this opportunity, flashing a sinister smile as he looked at the Apollo photo. There are three things Leonidas absolutely loves in this world: sipping wine and enjoying Spartan cheese. Lying around reading books and kicking those arrogant gods off the altar. After sharing this, he laughed and declared, "In the name of Sparta, we will go." And the most suitable person for the king was none other than the fifth Valkyrie, the hot-tempered one. Among her sisters, she was extremely hot-tempered and irritable, so bonding with them was far from smooth. Annoyed by Leonidas's attitude, she didn't hesitate to throw the official position. Then he lunged down and hit him on the forehead, realizing that this old man had a pretty cute. I've never seen a pair of Valkyrie and Qian been arguing before, so I'm worried they won't get along. Indeed, both were the aggressive type, ready to charge into a fight to the death with their opponent. Many of them share that commonality, which is why the cultivation of Before the start of the 9th round, the legendary coach promised this would be a special match. A duel to put an end to the millennia-long feud between humans and gods. When asked which nation was the strongest in human history, many people hesitated. Although there is still much debate, the Spartan people are the correct answer. These people dedicated their entire lives to relentless training. Whenever Sparta is mentioned, it immediately brought to mind the most epic war in history, where 300 warriors faced a Persian army of 300,000 men. In addition, there is the unwavering will to never be defeated by anyone or any. Today, the mighty King Leonidas will represent the various warlords amidst the cheers of the Spartan army. Meanwhile, the warrior representing the god of fire is Apollo, with an aura that is blindingly bright. Despite his flamboyant style, he was highly regarded by the gods, and the achievements he accomplished were true. But Apollo was beloved by the gods because of his breathtaking beauty and strength. The sun god, with his dazzling halo, was adored by many goddesses, who even created fan claps to cheer him on. As soon as the MC finished his introduction and shouted start, Leonidas had already lunged forward and the scene was so shocking that the entire audience thought the match was over in a heartbeat. Hidden in the dust and smoke, Apollo's arrogant, mocking expression was truly a cowardly attack. Leonidas didn't seem bothered at all and casually walked through the smoke. As soon as the smoke cleared, he immediately lunged forward, attacking relentlessly like Apollo, disdainful of the idea of teaching the beastly king a lesson. We've only just started selling fabric, and the ladies' group is already falling apart as if someone's going to. After warming up, Leonidas pulled out a cigar and started smoking, causing the female He desperately wanted to make the gods pay, especially that wretched, deceitful god. Apollo strikes a heart-shaped pose, wondering why the other person was so hard. Wretched isn't a nice word. We've been holding back for too long now, so prepare to receive your divine punishment. Leonidas did not hesitate to insult the god of the face simply because he hated him more than anyone else in the world. Whenever the great king is mentioned, the children's eyes light up. The passion that had dried up in the old man's blood was rekindled. Meanwhile, the soldiers, filled with admiration, were ready to rush headlong into the flames. Throughout history, many heroes and great figures have been born all over the world. Nevertheless, Leonidas is still considered the most admired man in human history. When the Persian army invaded Greece on an extremely large scale and with overwhelming force, because there were so many people with differing opinions, the meeting of the elders was still not. The Persian army was pressing in, yet they didn't dare send their troops into battle, because if we wage war now, Apollo will bring down divine punishment. In Greece, there was a ritual established to honor the sun god. Once the festival has begun, all military activities are strict. Apollo's prophecy has been passed down through generations, so the Zanspata people regard it as an absolute decree. Among those stubborn old men, there was one who was lucid enough to recognize the problem. If the Persian invasion of the peninsula had not been stopped, all of Greece would have been reduced to ruin. The whole group laughed at the foolish idea from a young, restless fellow. The old men tried their best to reassure everyone, saying it was all right. We are Zanspata, the most militarily powerful nation on the continent. A few days' delay won't cause us defeat. Seeing the old men oppressing the young men, the soldier felt a pang of resentment. And it's true, because we can't go against the prophecy. Only when reflecting on his life as a soldier did he realize he was just like those old elders. At the time, I just went along with what others did. We simply thought that was the custom, so we had no choice but to accept. For the young soldier, going against the crowd was terrifying, except for King Leonidas. At the council meeting, he went down and called them all a bunch of idiots. Those 3 heavenly punishments, just hearing about them makes my hand. Episode 12, refusing to entrust one's life to someone one has never even met before. Leonidas immediately advanced towards the statue, ignoring the reprimand. Then he unleashed a final punch that destroyed the sun god statue, leaving the entire council. Having destroyed everything, he arrogantly challenged, if divine punishment is to fall, let it fall. After making the declaration, the king brazenly walked away, enraged. Just because you wanted to fight, you caused this terrible mess? Leonidas took a deep breath, admitting he had no intention of dying. I'd rather drink and sleep all day than go fight. Leonidas destroyed the statue simply because now was the time to fight. As a Zanzibar, you should know when to choose to fight, right? Initially, the rescuer thought the king had been poisoned. But after a while of reflection, the young man could no longer restrain himself and turned the table. On the day the king marched straight to the battlefield alone. 31 soldiers, captivated by his masculine charm, volunteered to join him on his mission. They were well aware of the consequences awaiting them in the upcoming battle, but they still decided to stand alone. To be honest, we were really scared, but we are still people from Sparta. Hearing this, Leonidas happily accepted the shield and allowed everyone to join him in battle. 300 Spartans marched onward to the battlefield to face the unimaginable challenge. Faced with an army many times larger, Leonidas showed no sign of wavering. On the contrary, he was excited to lead his troops to beat up those. He may look imposing now, but back then, that soldier was so scared he almost. But at the same time, it was also a period when he felt truly alone. Despite their valiant fight, the king and his 300 soldiers all perished in that battle. But it was thanks to that inspiring war that all of Greece united to repel the Persian army. To describe what was so remarkable about King Leonidas, one must mention his back. Even now, the soldier hasn't forgotten the moment he charged forward to fight the Persian king head-on. The sheer silhouette of Badau's back was enough to give even a man goosebumps. Both Leonidas and the Spartans hated the sun god, that prophecy of the Han dynasty, which was both not to mention, he absolutely hated being ordered around, and Apollo maintained his arrogant attitude without the slightest remorse. Leonidas immediately transformed the shield into a multi-purpose saw and threw it towards Han. Many people say that his spirit has the ability to shapeshift very flexibly. Even if we get caught by our opponents, it doesn't matter. Leonidas, full of confidence, along with the female Valkyrie, unleashed a devastating attack that caused. If you want to live a long life, never stand in the way of a Spartan, just like Apollo gently landed after that full-force attack. Germany immediately shot Sika while he was still smoking, adding more medical treatment. Seeing this, the god gently stepped aside, creating a scene to please the sister. From the stands, one can see that the hand of Apollo is shining with a strange, shimmering light. Many people say that those resounding cymbals are the divine artifacts of the Han. Legend says it can transform into a sturdy shield, and sometimes it becomes a single musical, and there were times when it became a shining arrow, its radiance woven from the energy radiated by the sun god. Just a moment ago, Apollo used that command to counterattack, and the situation unfolded so quickly that people thought the Han had already. In short, Apollo's guidance could serve as both a weapon and armor. If you want to know how powerful it is, just watch and you'll understand. If Apollo so desired, Han could create a pair of zither with just a. For the sun god, this match was simply a do-loo, fan meet and greet session. As for what Han's opponents want to think, that's up to them. Feeling disrespected, Leonidas took out another cigar and lit it, then transformed the saw back into a shield. Next, he unleashed a series of air punches that left the entire audience. Then, unexpectedly, he unleashed an indestructible attack. Of course, it's worth noting that none of the attacks hit their target. Watching Apollo dodge them repeatedly left everyone speechless. Most people think the Han have the upper hand, forgetting that Leonidas's attack is extremely dangerous. Even Apollo's command couldn't completely stop it. However, if that's all there is, I don't think that guy would stand a chance of getting in there. After a series of fierce attacks, Apollo suddenly appeared from the side and struck him in the mouth. Leonidas gritted his teeth, trying to retaliate, but still couldn't hit them. Provoked by his opponent, he tried to remain calm and continued to maintain an. Apollo, with his superb footwork, easily weaved through each attack. Whenever he had the chance, Han would get close and attack the old man with. Taking advantage of the moment when the shield was neutralized, the sun god did not hesitate to. While striking, Apollo overheard whispers and murmurs from the Spartan soldiers. You call yourself a god, yet you just run around aimlessly. If forced to engage in direct combat, the king would undoubtedly prevail. The divine being felt that accepting the punishment was unnecessary. Just keep fighting in this defensive style, there's no need to listen to humanity. After much deliberation, Apollo decided to fight a fair battle to open humanity's eyes. Han innocently used silk thread to draw lines, claiming that the birthing this is perfect for both of us. The Chinese words uttered were like adding fuel to the fire, causing Leonidas's face. What kind of protective ritual are you setting up, you god in the middle? Apollo found these humans quite amusing. Wasn't this exactly what everyone had been hoping for? I've always been someone who meets all expectations, and that's what makes me supreme. Following that inspiring battle, 10,000 Spartan soldiers were mobilized to confront 300,000 Persian troops. As a result, the enemy was annihilated while Feta lost just over 90. The saying "never stand in the way of a Spartan" also originated from that. The Spartan soldiers did indeed request a direct confrontation, but Apollo's mockery of them was absolutely unacceptable. Seeing this, Arrest could only clutch his head in disbelief, wondering why he was so careless in his teaching. The sweet talk. He always says yes, but his conscience worries about that self-taught guy. I'm very confident Apollo will still win because, by his nature, he always strives to meet the expectation. That's the philosophy that helped him shine and become even stronger. Once Apollo enters his ultimate fighting mode, he will shine even brighter. Generally speaking, both 2M and very much acknowledge its strength and appreciate the power of money. As Gon said, Bankiri was the most demanding of the 13 sisters, but that was actually a good thing. The more they are disrespected and provoked, the more bloodthirsty those two will become. Before the final blow, Leonidas wanted the god to kneel before him. Hearing this, the Bankiri woman enthusiastically agreed. Because the starting area was limited, the weapon Leonidas would use was a chariot. Then the enemy declared they would tear people to shreds. In front of onlookers, both men calmly walked into each other's striking range. Without hesitation, Leonidas immediately unleashed his god-slaying hammer, shattering the very. Despite his formidable strength, Apollo was still able to dodge the attacks without too much. He extended his fist in a feint, then retracted his hand and Leonidas struggled to avoid touching the line, then both of them simultaneously unleashed it. Seeing the king raise his hand, intending to strike him with this, Apollo, with unexpected elegance, wielded his divine aura to lock down the old man's movements with mere gestures. So, it turns out he was deliberately trying to get closer to Leonidas earlier. With just one tug of the rope, he immediately lost his balance and was punched in the face. Apollo didn't want to prolong the match, so he unleashed a dangerous hold shot to end the fight. A blinding flash of light swept over the king's head, causing the old man to collapse. I saw the little golfer sitting slumped over. The smiling turtle revealed that the ending doesn't exist in the Spartan dictionary. They are strong because they never bow down or kneel before anyone else, not even the gods. While Apollo was pausing his attack, Leonidas suddenly lunged forward, thrusting his club straight at Apollo's face. The moment the force subsided, both men swung their maces, and then, falling to the ground, kneeling before the great king. How does it feel to be so humiliated? Episode 13. The Spartan soldiers were overjoyed to see the gods standing there when they saw Apollo lying sprawled on the ground. Above all, they were immensely proud to be able to watch the figure of a truly virtuous man. With just one counterattack, humanity's spirits were lifted, and they were recognized as a truly formidable people. Hearing this, Bankiri pursed his lips slightly, reminding himself of his older sister who was accompanying the king. When she gets angry, she's the most terrifying of the 13 sisters, not to mention her extremely competitive nature when she's furious. It is precisely because of this fiery temperament that the pair on the court fit together so perfectly. Imprisoning 3 gods of love is no match for those two. Just when everyone thought the match was over, Apollo unexpectedly got up, his face covered in dirt and Seeing this, Leonidas went over and advised him to do some manual labor. No one wants to be seen in such a pathetic state, right? Apollo stood up and retorted that he should have known better than anyone else about it. No matter how battered we are still more beautiful than ever. Despite his burning passion, in the eyes of the gods, he was nothing more than a show-off. Hearing them insult Apollo, Ares was so angry he wanted to punch them. But when the 2M guy caught him red-handed, he blushed and pretended nothing. He was only slightly annoyed because the god of play wasn't someone who didn't know his place. Apollo's message of self-understanding was misinterpreted as an insult. It is said that the message conveyed on that day served as a warning to foolish mankind. Waiting, however, wasn't what Apollo really wanted to express. Back in the time when gods and humans were still close to each other, there was a monster that kept disrupting the radio signals, causing people. The more people tease it, the more they seem to enjoy it and the more destructive it. Because of that incident, Ares' divine army was sent down to destroy the monster. But all of that was easily defeated, and it got a chance to be even funnier. Those gods are just all show, they're not actually that powerful. After days of wreaking havoc and spreading terror among the people, the monster was hated to the extreme, just like the poison itself. One day, while sleeping in, Apollo went to ask if the person who bullied Ares' subordinates was the one who did it. The monster flipped the mask off and giggled, never expecting to one day meet the sun god. Although Ares didn't ask him to, Apollo still went down to the mortal world on his own initiative to help himself. The monster didn't care what he was saying and just charged towards the car with that smug face. In the end, he took a direct punch from Apollo and tumbled over several times. The red-legged monster was struggling and thrashing about, even though it was already starting to feel the effects of the blow. It had only taken, which didn't give up. The monster stood up and roared, "I haven't lost yet." In response, Apollo burst into a hearty laugh and challenged him to another fight the next day, conveniently taking over his comfortable bed for the night. Day after day the monster came back here to challenge him to a fight, and he beat it. After shattering its mask, Apollo understood why it hated life so much. The orange monster held all the grudges because it had always been unjustly hated, whether in heaven or on earth, it was the same everywhere. Just because I look like a monster, I have to endure being ostracized. Therefore, we absolutely cannot afford to lose to someone who is admired for their beauty and strength. I certainly won't lose to an all-powerful god, Apollo said, smiling. You're so beautiful. The monster didn't believe it. This god was just being sarcastic because who would ever compliment a monster on its beautiful back? For Apollo, appearance or looks are not important. What is beautiful here is the person's very existence. The cockroach confronts itself and battles the soul of the medicinal fruit. It is this very act that makes it incredibly. Apollo understood the monster's feelings perfectly, because he himself had once felt. Before becoming an all-powerful god, he was once regarded by the entire Greek pantheon as an ordinary deity. Apollo's talents were not innate, he had to work harder than anyone else to acquire them. It was through that unwavering determination that he rose to become one of the 12 supreme gods and was hailed as the sun god. In Apollo's eyes, those who are not beautiful are those who are content with the present. Those who know themselves and their strengths will not change and will always be proud of their own beauty. Apollo didn't blame the monster for hurting everyone. Sometimes, even animals need to be ferocious to protect their own lives. Perhaps it was the god's job to prevent it from turning into war. In the end, Apollo waved his hand in thanks for the wonderful path and departed. Seeing this, the monster roared defiantly, declaring that it would not lose again. Unintentionally, the image of the two being so close was wit. From that day on, the monster began to mend its ways and live in harmony with humankind. It decided to build a shrine to honor Apollo and become the common people who regarded it. It was the monster and the little girl who carved the words "understanding the wind" on the altar, and Apollo understood the wind so well that he became so powerful. To become more beautiful than yesterday, the sun god has been burning his own soul. Although it was a bit irritating, Leonidas didn't hate that kind of attitude at all. We'll tear him to pieces with everything we have. Every time Apollo heard her utter such foul language, he got a headache. But he had to admit that the attack just now was beautiful. If they understood each other's own wind so well, then let's both burn our souls to ashes. Having said that, Apollo proceeded to remove the threads from his hand to perform the spell, causing Brew to. After the gleaming gloves disappeared, the entire audience was treated to a colossal, gilded artifact. A statue of a goddess appeared right behind him. Only now did Arrest finally admit that he was truly handsome when he was serious, without any attempt to hide. Then, they got so embarrassed that steam was practically coming out of their. According to Greek mythology, Apollo and the goddess used light to create a golden bow to defeat the giant insectoid race. He wielded a colossal, powerful divine weapon with great skill. By transforming light into matter, Apollo was able to create the ultimate arrow. Then, seeing the guards, they quickly rushed forward to warn them, but before anyone could realize it, Apollo's arrow of light had grazed the ear of a god in the audience. As for Leonidas, he had a hole in his body from which he had sucked all. The brightest part of the sun was perceived by the gods as a midday sun that was both sublime and the golden arrows shot by Apollo traveled at the speed of light. If they were still alive, they would have killed them immediately without feeling any. Only one person in the heavens could stop that arrow. Senza's attack on Leonidas is definitely doomed. Because the arrow was so dangerous, the Valkyrie woman was forced to return to her shield. Apollo found it hard to believe that the old man was still alive after that blow. It seems humanity is tougher than we thought. Despite his admiration, he continuously unleashed golden meteor arrows. Meanwhile, the spectators scattered in panic as stray bullets flew everywhere. The moment the shield was flung open, the old man was riddled with arrows. Helpless, the king could only endure the blows without any way to retaliate. Despite being covered in wounds, Leonidas felt comfortable and almost fell asleep. With Valkyrie's concern, Mr. Tranin, don't worry too much. Whether you see them or not doesn't matter because they're just an arrow. We will smash them into tiny pieces. Apollo could no longer bear to see his opponent suffer any longer, so he unleashed a decisive. But for some reason, Leonidas saw it and deflected it, severely injuring Apollo. He struggled to stand firm, but the blood gushing out made his mind hazy. Unable to bear it any longer, Apollo finally collapsed to the ground in helplessness. In episode 14, the truth is that Leonidas didn't actually see the arrow of light as everyone thought. That king had experienced many bloody battles on the battlefield, so he knew very well that his warrior instincts were incredible. It was because of that experience that he was able to deflect Apollo's arrows, and when the female idol saw her lying motionless, she cried and begged. Just as Leonidas thought, there's no way that God could be appearing in such a nonsensical way. Being shot in the head by his own arrow was incredibly humiliating, so Apollo struggled to get back on his feet, but the king kept dragging his feet. If you think we'll gratefully accept flowery words from a god, don't be ridiculous. He's facing a Spartan king. Hearing this, Apollo immediately struggled to his feet, took a deep breath, then burst out laughing and declared, I hate the very thing that made him who he is. Thanks to this match, the two of them have started to understand and respect each other a little more. Before charging in, Apollo wanted to know why his opponent was fighting to this extent. Is this revenge against me? Leonidas asked, lighting his cigarette. I'm fighting. Some people cannot choose how they are born, the only thing they can do is follow their hearts. It might sound selfish, but that's just the kind of person I am, and besides, you still have 309 bins ready to stand by your side. In Leonidas's eyes, they were a bunch of fools, but their spirit was second to none. By linking arms with the female Valkyrie, he transformed once again and reached his ultimate form. However, it was a very simple picture that made the little golfer feel uneasy. As far as Bru knows, the Spartan people had an extremely well-organized infantry formation. Its core lies not in defense, but in allowing the sound of the army to be unstopped. It shot forward like a spear and shattered the enemy's lines. Faced with the tremendous pressure radiating from Leonidas, the sun god felt overjoyed because fighting him had made him even more beautiful. Having said that, Apollo gave all the silk to the goddess to weave into a strong, ordinary thread. In mythology, there was a time when Apollo himself placed himself on a bow. It became a silver arrow that shattered everything in its path. Seeing this, Ares was greatly alarmed. Was he planning to smash the shield? Could the most powerful arrow in the heavens pierce humanity's strongest shield? That's the question the entire audience wants to know the answer to. The ninth match was dramatic, and the breathing game will surely end after this final attack. As soon as the foul-smelling drops and cigarette butts fell to the two of them didn't hesitate to rush forward and put an end to this battle. If Leonidas is the divine shield of fire, then Apollo is the silver arrow that steals souls. The moment their two most powerful attacks clashed, both the silver arrows and the shields of the two fighters shattered instantly. Although they were pierced by the sun god's arm, it was something they had both planned beforehand. Driven by their fighting spirit, Leonidas and the female Valkyrie unleashed a punch straight to the face of the self-proclaimed god, but the one who ultimately smiled was still Apollo. Despite being a hired hand, Leonidas was still extremely pleased to be defeated by the hateful god. Watching the king's figure slowly crumble away, all 309 soldiers were unable to hold back their tears. Despite their heartbreak, they followed the king's back to the very end. Ever since we first met, he has always been the coolest Spartan king on earth. After hearing this, Leonidas smiled contentedly, then closed his eyes and passed. Despite being labeled a rebel against fate and living more selfishly than anyone else in the world, But Apollo, through the embrace, could sense the beauty of King Leonidas and the Valkyrie. Even until the very last moment, they both remained so beautiful, as Apollo's winning goal put them ahead and regained control. Before going out, he didn't forget to treat the hundreds of female fans who had come to watch and cheer him on. He's just being enthusiastic, but 2M knows perfectly well that the sun god, even though she was using her hands, she still tried to pretend she was fine to. However, I think that personality suits the title of sun god very well. Apollo was pleased to receive the beauty's attention, but he intended to leave those wounds as they were. Because they were proof of the recent battle in the tunnel, the monster couldn't help but feel uneasy when it saw Apollo enter with his tattered body. When it ran up to him, he proudly asked if it thought these wounds were beautiful. This is proof that we fought with a spirit that defied the authority of that great king. After saying that, Apollo fainted and fell into the monster's arms, allowing it to carrying the sun god on its back was probably the greatest honor of its life. Among the 300 Spartan soldiers in the audience, despite their grief, they could still clearly see the figure of Voli. They will continue to fight and will not hold their heads high in pride like their great Spartan king. Even though Bruno had prepared himself mentally, he couldn't hold back his emotions in the stands as he witnessed another of his. Through this match, the gladiators were able to feel and admire the indomitable fighting spirit of Leonidas. He possessed a magnificent and glorious aura. The young swordsman felt incredibly envious of the sight of him shining so brightly. I also want to go out there and fight with everything I have instead of dying in a hospital bed. In his room, Bruno was going crazy because he still couldn't choose the next representative fighter. She knew humanity was on the brink of disaster, but she couldn't find the right answer, which was, while the two sisters were considering which fighter to choose next. The young swordsman opened his mouth and volunteered to take the next block to equalize the score for. After much deliberation, Bruno decided to trust and entrust this task to the greatest swordsman in human history. At the same time, he was also a belligerent individual who always wanted to test it. At the same time, the Buddha, dressed as a detective, intercepted and investigated. Could you tell us a little more about Officer Fritz? Kintoki is currently investigating, so we know quite a bit about it. It seems like that person has been imprisoned in the underworld for quite a while now. The reason Fritz was imprisoned was because he had mixed the magic sword of the court. And while they were at it, they also took the life of the son of the. After much deliberation, the Buddha realized that his sins were not yet serious enough. Normally, if someone provoked him, he would eliminate them immediately, but we're starting to sense something fishy going on in this case. After learning that Friar Fritz was Bru's lover, the Buddha realized that she had initiated this war to save humanity. At the same time, she tries to find a way to rescue her. In general, the Buddha wanted to know why the temple had imprisoned the scholar Fritz for so long. Could he possibly be some extremely important figure to Mr. Trang? Please explain it in just one sentence. Upon hearing this, Mr. Din unexpectedly summoned a divine artifact. With just a light tap, the water easily surged in the surrounding area, forcing the elephant to keep its distance. Odin warned that anyone who entered his territory would be subdued. Seeing that the Buddha still had no intention of helping him retreat, he continued to attack just as by having neutralized the attack, he picked up his staff and asked, "What is your long-held ambition?" Based on what Bayu Gie Bap had learned, he suspected that Odin was planning to resurrect the primordial god. In response, the deceitful man gave a vile smile, knowing his secret. The setting for the 10th match is the city of Kyoto during those years. This promises to be another fierce battle between Wu Qi, the greatest swordsman in the history of mankind. His rival is the most powerful godslayer in the heavens, named Susanoo.